Let's turn our gears now to other conversation. Nigeria's inflation rate is to 21.34% in December 2022, despite the Christmas and New Year festivities dropping from 21.47% recorded in November. Well, this is the first time Nigeria's headline inflation rate dropped on a month-on-month basis in the last 11 months. Well, let's get talking now. We have our guest joining us virtually. Mukhtar Mohammed is CEO of Finance with Mukhtar. He joins us virtually now. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you for joining us again.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, good to see you. I mean, it's looking like things are beginning to, will I say, look good or great with this report, inflation report, that it's dropping gradually. So how excited are you that it looks like things are looking up really good?
Well, I'm excited to the point that there seems to be, for the first time, seems to have made a policy that is working. That's it, that the CBN hiking rate in December, and the whole idea why they had to raise that rate was because they want to control inflation in this during the festivity period. So I'm happy that that is working. But the long-term implication of this, I think I still have my worries, especially with the issue that we have now that has to do with petroleum scarcity, and these have raised the cost of goods, led to the rise in cost of goods and services. So in the short term, we have to celebrate this, but in the long term, it's not looking good, especially when you look at situation that have to do with the fuel situation in the country.
I'm looking at how they did happen, because if you look at during the festive season, you saw queues across the filling stations, across the nation, everywhere. It looks like, but because people were expecting that it should go up higher. But why are we seeing these, numbers dropping?
Well, you need to understand that those queues started coming up in the last week of, I think the last week before Christmas, that we started having those queues would come and go. It was not as bad as it is now. And so that is why, these queues have been here for up to a month now. So we'll begin to see those effects in those January reports. I can assure you that. And also, you must not forget that during the festivity period after the raising hike, you can see that the price of household items still went up, which is the key to those people in the bottom. So definitely that is still a major challenge for me.
You also talk about the fact that CBN started reviewing interest rate upward to control inflation. That didn't happen really. Perhaps it took almost 11 months. But did you think that it was beginning to pay off after 11 months? So talk to us.
Yes, I agree, Frank. I think it's paying off after 11 months, because I said it before, we didn't get here overnight and we will not get out of that place overnight. Continuous good policy, keep improving. If you look at those numbers, they were not as bad as the previous month, not as bad as the previous month, not as bad as the previous month, even though the reduction were marginal. But we could see the effect on it now finally. So definitely, I wasn't surprised. The only thing that I would have seen a big result of all this if we've been able to control the FX, the exchange rate volatility, which means most of the goods and services that we use in this country were imported. And so you could also attribute the current inflationary figure that for the first time we've had a steady exchange rate in the parallel market. It has not gone beyond 410, 420, 710, 720, 740. And before now.
Hello, Mr. Mukhtar. Hello, can you hear me? Well, okay, go ahead, please. Please continue on your thoughts. Continue with your thought, please. Well, because many predicted that the inflation rate for the month of December could rise slightly on the back of the, ripple effect from the food crisis, interest rate trajectory, the redesign of the currency, amongst others. Well, so perhaps nobody saw this coming, because even with the Naira redesign, you also have limitation withdrawal also came into play at that time. So nobody really, saw this coming. But so what is likely? What? Okay, go ahead, please.
No, let me get you.
No, so I was saying that against projection and analyst prediction that the inflation rate was going to go up because first the interest rate was going up. They also you had the redesigned Naira note currency, of course, and you also have the withdrawal limits, of course, where some money were mopped up from the economy, as it were. But it looks like nobody saw this coming. So I was asking you, what is likely to change with this new rate? How are things likely to go down? How is it likely to reflect? Because most time when we see inflation figures going down this way, it never reflected or in our daily life or even at the micro level.
The statement you just made, it will not reflect in our micro level, but not reflect in our daily life, because what affects Nigeria most, up to 19% of Nigeria, we see that the inflation in that part, that sector is not low. That is in terms of food, household food items. The inflation figure there is still high. So definitely, and that was attributed, again, you can attribute that also to the flooding issues that we have before now. We have flood in almost every part of Nigeria, especially the food basket of Nigeria, like Benue State and other states. So definitely, that would have been responsible for the inflationary pressure that we saw in the household items. Now, to say the other thing we're looking at, how we were expecting, because the redesigning of the Naira note, and like I said before, the stability of the exchange rate also is one factor that has played, especially in the parallel market. Remember that before the redesign of the Naira rate came into effect, we were getting a Naira to dollar exchange that was going to almost 900 before the redesigning came, and we saw it got down to like 700. From 700, at the point it got to like as low as 710, 700. So that also, then you need to know that the redesign of Naira note also has its positive, because most of the currencies, most of the Naira, that were chasing the fiat dollars were not in the banking space. So by bringing them into the banking space, CBN were able to use one of the key to reduce inflation, which is the reduction in liquidity in the system, like you said. So definitely that also could have helped also. But I think by and large, we see those reduction in the liquidity system that was outside the banking space, because a lot of people brought back their money in there. Then again, we saw the stability, even if we see it's not what we expect, comparable to the import-export market, the official market, which is still trading at 450, comparable to them to the parallel market, which is 720, 730. But remember, before now, we're going to 850, even we were thinking if we get to the 1,000 naira mark. So those, I think for me, those are the key things that have driven down this inflationary figure. The stability from 850 to about 700, and also most of the currency that were not in the banking system that were brought in there, and CBN was able to use the reduction in liquidity in the system to curtail this inflationary pressure. But we could see that pressure was not controlled in household items, especially food items, because of the flooding that happens before this report came up.
Now that we are seeing the inflation figures dropping now, do we expect the CBN at the next MPC meeting to taper a little bit with the interest rate, the current interest rate, which is...
If you are doing something and you are getting results, you may want to continue to do it. But I think the problem with the CBN monetary policy, why it's taking a toll on a lot of Nigerians, is because the physical side are not able to do anything to reduce the suffering of Nigerians, because in developed economy, the monetary policy are independent of the physical policy. So what we would have seen is that the monetary policy will do what they have to do. The fiscal side will do what they have to do. What is there for the fiscal side? The fiscal side will come up with policy that would help cushion the effect of those high, maybe a hike in interest rate, so that small businesses and household items are able to meet their daily need, and also business were able to run without them letting a lot of people go. So, but what we see in Nigeria is that the monetary policy does what they have to do. The physical side is non-existent. So definitely that is the major challenge. So you now see a lot of job losses when there's this hiking rate, because people are trying to reduce, they are trying as much as possible to reduce overhead costs.
Yes.
So definitely, I think for me, that is the major challenge. That's why I'm also confident that we'll be able to sustain this, especially going into an election year where governors have taken the back seats.
So what's your position? What is likely to be the CBN stand at the next NPC meeting?
And I wish I have the crystal ball to tell you what is running in the minds of the members of the NPC.
Okay.
But I think for me, with the result they've gotten thus far, they will be encouraged. We may see a slight tick, we may see a slight hike in interest rate, but again, they will have to look at the non-performing loans of the banks, which in the third quarter, if you look at that, the report that the bank has brought was not very encouraging. So that also could be one of the things that we looked at. But definitely, I expect a slight rate hike, just to make sure that, because remember again, we are going to an election year. And that is why people have always said that CBN have come up with the cashless policies and the redesign of the currency. But you know, politicians will always find a way to saturate the system with a lot of liquidity. So that, of course, could be one thing that may hinder this group, this fight on inflation. But I know what I can categorically say, we could see inflation begin to steady in the second quarter of the year. We could see a rapid reduction, and then at that time we might not be having the hiking rate. But for now, I think I'll still vote for a little bit ticking in the rate hike.
Now, just before I let you go, you talked about the fact that this may not reflect, in the micro activities, economic activities, or in the day-to-day activities, economic activities on the street there. But talk to us, now that we have the food inflation, going down from 24 to 23%, from the previous month, do we expect this to reflect soon, or how soon do we think this will reflect in the commodity market?
Well, for the commodity market, like I said, there are a lot of challenges outside the what I just mentioned, like food. I mean, the erosion. We have had transportation also going high, and so these things are things that are daily occur, and they occur. They don't give you notice before they occur, and also not to forget the volatility in the exchange rate. We are just enjoying it now. We don't know what policy will come off tomorrow or what it will be like tomorrow. So, but I think we will begin to see those. Enjoyment, like I say, in the first quarter of the year. Whether it will start in January, I cannot precisely say that, because again, we have the fuel situation that is not going away, because in other states now outside of Lagos and Abuja, in other states, even in Lagos here, you go to some local, you cannot buy fuel at the official rate any longer. So definitely, that for me is one area that we need to address. If we need to remove subsidy now, we do it. If we are not ready to remove subsidy, we are going to wait till this government goes, and then the new government come out to say we are removing subsidy. So definitely, we will not see those numbers reflecting in the ordinary Nigerians if what I'm looking in front of me is anything to go by.
Just a quick one on the subsidy. Now that you talked about subsidy, of course, it's also one factor when you talk about inflation as well. Let's look at it this way, because some people believe that the subsidy is not working because you have disparities in the prices of fuel across different stations or different filling stations. You have the faction of the Independent Marketers Association, you have the major market, and of course you have the NNPC as well. NNPC is selling us as around 180 per pump price, right? That's what they are selling. Other independent marketers are selling around 200, 250. These are disparities in the prices. How well do we begin to address this? Because this no doubt, according to many, will impact on the inflation that we're talking about. Again, that the subsidy issue is not working.
Yeah, subsidy is not working. You and I know that since subsidy have not worked, has not done the ordinary Nigeria any good. Secondly, with the disparity we are seeing, that's how it's supposed to be normally without subsidy. So the only why we are complaining is because there is subsidy. So we expect the disparity to always be, because that is free market, and that's what capitalism is all about. If those marketers are importing their own fuel, they are getting their own efforts, import their own fuel, then they will have to sell based on how they got their own. And so you have choices to either you go to the independence marketer, either you go to the major independent marketer, or you go to NNPC. That's how it's supposed to be. Even the petroleum industry bill that was passed into law last year, that's what it's tend to achieve. And again, it's nowhere. It's only in Nigeria that you see that the fire petroleum product in Lagos is at the same time the fire petroleum product in Ibadan. I also want it to be the same in Kaduna, but because of the subsidy, ordinarily there's cost implication, because these states are just land, like place like Lagos have seaports, and because we are importing this product, they bring it there. The cost of movement of the petroleum product from Apapa to either Onikpan to Oshodi or to Ikoyi or Balende or Aja is lower compared to the cost of moving those goods from here to Kaduna or to Ibadan or to Sokoto. So definitely we are not supposed to be having those prices coming up the same. So for me, it's just that's why we say the subsidy is not working, because of those kind of challenges that we are seeing even within a capital cities. But that's the only reason why I think it's not working, because if we are still paying subsidy, then they have to be uniform. Then if we are not paying subsidy, what we are seeing now should not be abnormal.
So we can now say, can we say that technically the subsidy regime removal has started?
Well, you can say technically it has started. Technically, you can say it has started with the major marketers or independent marketers, but also you will ask a question: who is importing fuel thus far for the past 7 years? Who have been importing fuel? It's only NNPC. Is it that NNPC import this fuel and sell it to the major marketers? The major marketers are also selling it to the independent marketers, and that is why we have those different products. So if NNPC is importing those fuel and selling to those people, and those people are now making more profit than NNPC, that shows there's something wrong with the cocoa subsidy. So that is why technically you say there's no subsidy, but you could see written all over that there is subsidy, because only one company, that is one organization that is still importing petroleum products into the country up to now, and that organization is enjoying subsidy, and that's NNPC.
Okay, I think we should leave it there. Thank you so much. Always a delight to have you on the show, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO, Finance Week. Mukhtar, thank you for your time, business.
Thank you, Frank, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Soon to come after the break, we'll still dwell on inflation rate, but this time, of course, food inflation as rate declined to 23.75% from 24.13% previously. So after the break now, we'll look at the expected impact in the commodity market. We're back in a moment. This is Business Breakfast.